In the mid-1800s, the Great Plains were home to tens of millions of buffalo, but the arrival of the railroad and the western frontier drastically changed their numbers. By the late 1800s, only about 300 buffalo remained in the wild. Through conservation efforts, their population has since rebounded to around 400,000 in North America today. In December 1876, Comanche chief Black Horse surveyed the high plains of West Texas, stunned by what he saw. The landscape resembled a slaughterhouse, with dark streaks of blood splattered across the grass and earth, leading away from the decaying bodies of numerous bison. Earlier, Cheyennes had returned to the Darlington Agency in Oklahoma, with reports of entire buffalo herds slaughtered to the north, sparking unrest that required intervention by U.S. troops. The Comanches dismissed these stories, considering them exaggerated. However, when government beef rations were cut short at the Fort Sill Reservation due to budget constraints, Black Horse sought permission to lead his followers on a buffalo hunt on the Staked Plains. About 170 people, including white captive Herman Lehman, who had recently escaped from the Apaches and joined the Comanches, accompanied him to West Texas. Having witnessed a mass slaughter mirroring the accounts of the herds in Kansas, Black Horse discerned that multiple groups of whites were responsible, evident from the various methods employed. Some left the head intact while skinning the animal, while others decapitated the bison before skinning. Occasionally, the Comanches stumbled upon carcasses with rods or stakes driven through the neck, the hide cut around the horns, belly, and legs, then ripped off by horses. Some buffalo had their tongues torn out, and the remaining meat was left to spoil. Despite buffalo still roaming the southern edge of the Staked Plains, the senseless slaughter incensed the Comanche band, leading them to refuse to return to the reservation. They resolved to seek revenge on the white hunters. Both the U.S. Army's strategy of eliminating buffalo herds to deprive warring tribes of a vital food source and the National Depression of 1873 fueled an unrelenting campaign to exterminate these magnificent creatures. On Christmas Day in 1874, two skinners and 20-year-old Joe McComb set out on the inaugural hide expedition into the southern end of the Staked Plains from Fort Griffin. 700 bison were skinned in 2 months. Relocating, McCombs and his team harvested an additional 1,300 hides. Remarkably, they encountered no competition during their ventures. Rumors spread that the southern end of the Staked Plains was teeming with buffalo ripe for the taking. Around a dozen outfits, including the Moore brothers, ventured into the Staked Plains from Fort Griffin. J. Wright Moore boasted of slaying 96 bison in one outing, second only to Frank Collinson, who downed 121 bison in a stand just north of present-day Childress. Robert Cypriot Patrack recounted his experience as part of a crew of 16, including 2 hunters, 1 cook, and 10 skinners, with 2 men tasked with hauling hides and 1 responsible for loading ammunition. Feeling overcrowded at Fort Griffin, Charles Rath, originally from Germany, relocated 50 miles west to establish his own outfitter post along the Brazos River in 1875. He named it Rath City. Around 80 hunters, including future lawman Pat Garrett, followed him to the area. The Fort Worth newspaper provided daily updates on hide prices directly from the Galveston Exchange. By 1877, the hide business in the southern region had surpassed $1 million. With bison nearing extinction in Kansas, the hunting grounds became a magnet for hunters. Among them was frontiersman Charles Buffalo Jones. Despite his reservations about the excessive hunting, Jones couldn't resist the lucrative opportunities, especially with 2 young boys to support. Upon arriving in Fort Griffin, Jones encountered not only the easy money that drew him to West Texas, but also a rough criminal element. The individuals operating out of Rath City were particularly notorious. Chief Black Horse also observed the events. Enraged, he violated his agreement to return to the reservation and led his people into Pocket Canyon for the winter. By February 1877, when the weather improved, Black Horse and his Comanches launched an attack. Marshal Sewall, stationed below Caprock near the head of Salt Fork, had recently acquired a new Sharps Creedmoor .45 rifle and managed to kill 21 bison. As he made his way back to camp, the Comanches ambushed him. While 3 skinners and another hunter hid, Sewall endured torture and ultimately met a grisly fate. His body was discovered stripped naked, with scalp locks taken and deep wounds inflicted on his temples and navel. The legs of his rifle's tripod were found lodged in the wounds. The survivors rushed to Wrath City seeking assistance. A group of 40 men from Wrath City returned to Sewall's camp, where they buried him and then set off to pursue the Comanche war party. In a skirmish with Black Horse's group, they managed to wound and capture Comanche Spotted Jack before returning to Wrath City. The Comanches also raided Garrett's camp, stealing his horses, and did the same to Willis Glen. Jones, Garrett, and John R. Cook were among the hundreds of armed men who had gathered at Wrath City from all over the Staked Plains. Smoky Hill Thompson, a former mountain man and someone Jones compared to a white-haired Kit Carson, quickly rallied volunteers. Thompson assigned one group to track down the Comanches and the other to protect Wrath City. Of those men, 125 agreed to join the fight. Most stayed behind to defend the town, while 45 embarked on the expedition. Thompson, citing his age, declined to go. Hank Campbell was chosen as the leader of the punitive expedition, with Jose Tafoya, a former Comanchero from New Mexico, agreeing to serve as their guide. Tafoya asserted that on September 28, 1874, he led caller Ranald Mackenzie's men in the Battle of Palo Duro Canyon against the Comanches. Out of the 45 men, 20 didn't have horses, so Captain Jim White arranged for 2 wagons, one to transport the men and the other for carrying provisions and whiskey. Soon, Captain White realized that Tafoya was leading the troops in the wrong direction. After 2 days, White started bleeding from his lungs and decided to turn back. Jim Smith was then chosen as the new captain. Smith guided the men to the location where Sewall had been killed, and from there, Tafoya picked up the trail of the Comanches. Tafoya led the volunteers westward to the edge of the Caprock near what is now the town of Post. He informed the hunters that he believed Black Horse's group was heading towards Yellowhouse Canyon, near present-day Lubbock. The vast, treeless Staked Plains, with its lack of distinctive features, already confused the expedition. Jones, among others, believed they were more than 100 miles north of their actual position. Silently advancing to the canyon's entrance, they encountered a lookout whom they swiftly dispatched. Tafoya forged ahead and located Black Horse's camp. Campbell opted to march through the night to catch Black Horse by surprise at daybreak. They stashed provisions and wagons at the canyon entrance. On the night of March 17, 1877, Tafoya mistakenly led his group to the North Fork instead of the South Fork where Black Horse's camp was located. Realizing the error, he swiftly corrected course, retracing their steps to the South Canyon. Campbell divided his 43 men into 3 teams. 2 mounted groups scaled the canyon walls, positioned on the north and south sides. On foot, the third party made their way toward Black Horse's hiding place along the canyon floor. As dawn broke on March 18th, they charged within shooting range with their pistols. Caught by surprise, the Comanches fled in a panic, but soon realized that the attacking force was smaller than expected. The warriors quickly organized defensively to repel the hunters, while their women climbed the canyon walls and launched attacks from above on the horsemen. The buffalo hunters were stunned by the intensity of the Comanche resistance. Amidst the chaos, Joe Jackson was wounded in the groin but managed to be pulled to safety. Other hunters fell under the barrage of Comanche gunfire. The outnumbered band of buffalo hunters began to retreat as the Indians, as reported by Tafoya, were not only Comanches but also renegade Apaches. Black Horse's men spread out into skirmish lines along the canyon's flanks and ignited the dry grass for cover. A Comanche warrior rode a white horse, urging his comrades to charge. From a distance of 300 yards, Jones and his companions took down the warrior. "Guys, it's a trick!" According to the biography Lord of Beasts, Jones screamed. "Pay attention to this side. Through the fog, they are ambushing us with stealth." Upon hearing Jones's warning, Cook organized some hunters to counter the flanking maneuver. However, the men were vastly outnumbered and couldn't hold their position. By mid-afternoon, Campbell ordered a retreat to Buffalo Springs. With Black Horse's warriors in pursuit, sensing an opportunity for a deadly attack, Smith instructed his men to ignite a large bonfire. This diversion allowed the small group of volunteers to escape southward and then eastward. They set additional fires to obscure their trail. It took 4 days for the buffalo hunters to make it back to Wrath City. Lehman suffered severe wounds, and Jackson succumbed to his groin injury 2 months later. The casualty figures varied widely. Following interviews with Black Horse and others, the Army estimated Comanche casualties at 35 dead and 22 wounded. However, there was no official count of buffalo hunter casualties from the Army. Reports ranged from as few as 4 wounded to as many as 12 killed and 8 wounded. The battle fueled Black Horse's confidence. His warriors ambushed and killed 3 more hunters, and they wrecked several hunting camps. On May 1st, 50 warriors stormed through the streets of Wrath City, causing chaos by shooting, yelling, and stealing as many horses as they could. The 10th Cavalry was tasked with apprehending Black Horse. After a fierce skirmish, most of the Comanche group retreated to the reservation. The Battle of Yellowhouse Canyon marked the end of major Indian conflicts on the high plains of Texas. Within 2 years, the southern buffalo population was devastated. Macomb's hunt, which lasted from September 1878 until March 1879, produced a mere 800 hides. Encountering a herd of 50 became increasingly rare. "After my last hunt, I don't think I saw a single buffalo on the range," Macombs reminisced. "There was no hunting after that." Despite being dubbed Buffalo Jones due to his hunts on the Staked Plains, Jones dedicated the following decades to preventing the extinction of the buffalo. He said that I had killed hundreds of buffalo for their hides and that I would someday catch and domesticate enough of them to make up for my foolishness. The buffalo herd that Jones introduced to Yellowstone National Park in 1902, during his tenure as the first game warden, marked the beginning of a lengthy journey that ultimately saved the buffalo from the edge of extinction.